Hi, everybody. Welcome to another version of this podcast and webcast with my very special guest. I'm Bruce Singer. This is the Bruce Singer podcast, and I'm with Canada CFOs, which provides CFOs on a contract and part-time basis. And welcome to my very special guest, Marc Diamant, who is an entrepreneurial CFO and currently with Compass Food Sales, which is an organization that distributes and manufactures healthy food snacks across the Canadian market. The company's been around 50 years, an incredible story. Marc is originally from Argentina and has been in Canada 18 years. He'll share his story, and I'm thrilled to have him. We're going to do a lot of talking. Today's topic is about change from the perspective of an entrepreneurial CFO in the healthy food snack industry. And thank you, Marc, for coming on this podcast.
Thank you very much, Bruce, and thank you for the great introduction. Really appreciate it. Definitely, when we think about change, we have to obviously um, look back at these two last and a half years since the pandemic started and how things have changed in every aspect. Our company, Compass, we operate in the global supply chain. I would say sector. We bring products from all over the world, and definitely the last 2 years have been a test for all what we do, especially on the supply chain side. My role, I'm involved in finance, in operations, IT, HR, supporting sales. So definitely all of that had require a lot of, I would say, concentration over the last 2 years and a half. When we look back, really, and I was thinking about this, the amount of change that we all as individuals went through over the last 2 years and a half is unbelievable. Uh, Especially because it's a very short period of time, and we saw the market. I would say the stock market and the real estate market, specifically in Canada, going up significantly, and now we see it going the other way. And so dynamics that usually take many more years have been compressed in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And then we think, okay, well, it seems that the world is very unpredictable, or at least it's more unpredictable than before. So the thought is that, well, what will happen, in the next 5, 10, 15 years, right? So my personal perspective, as you said very well, I'm coming from Argentina. Argentina is a place where, while I live there, and I love Argentina dearly, I lived through many economic crises. One of them I remember very well. We were basically having 1,000% inflation. I mean, we didn't get a year of that because we will not survive. But even in the short period of time that happened, it was like basically a price in the morning was different than a price in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
So, right. So the experience with inflation and the experience with living all that change gave me a little bit of an insight in the sense of, well, there are many things that we can control of the environment right now. Um, we know in Canada we are having inflation that it was not there for the last 30, 40 years. We are having potential recession. We having a war overseas. There are so many challenges in aspects that we never thought. We never expect to have one day without Rogers. We never expect to have Pearson Airport to be a difficult place to move. So there are many things that we
Yeah.
always kind of took for granted, that they are not as granted as they were. And all these change, then we have to, and that affect us as individuals and us as organizations. I mean, even on the supply chain, many challenges with containers, with trackers, things that prices, so many things that we have not seen way before to the pandemic. So I was reflecting and thinking how easy we had it before the pandemic in many aspects. And that reality today is, I would say, is harder for all of us, for every, I would say, entrepreneurial organization, like is our case, to really, provide value to our customers.
So you mentioned a couple of things. One of the things was inflation, and the second thing is add value. If we could talk about inflation for a minute. So how do you deal with that? what do you do? Like you got, like, because it's obviously pretty severe. It can affect your margins and things like that. How do you address it?
Very challenging. I mean, and again, I was raised in inflation, and
Yeah,
it's always a very difficult, situation because costs increase fast, but prices don't do it in the same pace. So
yeah,
that's the main challenge. And then, I mean, it really goes down. We are very lucky at Compass. I mean, we have really built a very strong culture. I mean, I'm lucky enough. Our CEO and myself, we work at the same organization, which is Mars Inc. It's a very large tier one
yeah,
CPG. I work in South America, she work in Canada, so we have a very common, I would say, background and understanding of the type of organization that we want to lead and create.
yeah,
But how you deal with inflation is, I would say, I would mention three things. Number one, I would call it reflex. So reflex is to basically, when things that you cannot anticipate, you have to be able to react relatively quickly, if not very quick.
yeah,
The second is about resiliency. So you have to find, the ways and the areas where you can get or sustain a competitive advantage. Either, it could be trying to basically find opportunities, buying opportunities, try to find any kind of opportunity that will allow you to at least sustain your costs, try to basically negotiate with vendors, find new vendors, be creative, and and the other is be resourceful, because when you are in an inflation situation and very connected to the other, you have to find different ways to operate that will overall reduce your cost, or at least keep it unchanged, right? We cannot expect, I mean, if the environment is changing and everything is changing around us, then we have to find ways to adapt and adjust. And again, that's the beauty and the positive of being in a mid-sized entrepreneurial organization like Compass is,
yeah,
where basically we are nimble and we are flexible and we can turn around and move around very quickly. Like I used to work in very large corporations, even Mars, which I revere. But you always have kind of a headquarters that you report, and then they have to make the decision. You provide recommendations. Well, as I always said, in mid-sized entrepreneurial companies, we are really the headquarters at the same time. So we are basically making all those decisions. It's like when you, I don't know, I'm sure it happened to you when you go in these large cruise. You go in a cruise, there are 5,000 staff, and everyone takes
yeah,
care of you. That's my perspective of seeing a very large company, which will be more difficult for some of them potentially to react and turn. But we have the advantage of I would say a mid-sized sailboat where we can
interesting.
turn and we can see where the wind comes, and we can try to adjust and adapt. But even with all of that, the challenge is still there. And I think I said at the beginning, is tougher today to operate in many aspects than it was before the pandemic.
Interesting. So what other opportunities did you see? You said so one is inflation. What other how else have you been affected in terms of change at Compass Foods? And what are some of the other areas? Like one of the things you mentioned before, I think earlier, is talent.
Definitely,
How do you how do you how do you deal with talent? That's a big
uh,
one.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
a very good question. That's a very interesting area because, again, I'm a finance person. And
yeah,
when I started my career, Bruce, like in Ernst& Young, and I was an auditor working for the firm, I thought, you know what is important about the company are the assets, are the resources, are the brands, the marketing. And I thought at that time, well, people, yeah, sure, are somewhat important, but they are not the number one. What is more important are the assets. And now, after many many years and many experience, and again the last eight basically leading HR, I came to one very simple conclusion: is that everyone in our organization, and I would say in many organizations, and especially in the business that we are, where we rely on people coming every day to the plant to deliver the product, to produce the product, that people are the number one asset in our company. And I mean, that means that we have to invest a lot of time trying to help them navigate the pandemic, because that was a real thing. There were many challenges we never had before, and focusing on really great, getting the best talent we can possibly can. And not only that, that's just one portion, but how we integrate it, how we ensure they fit, how we make sure that we coach them and develop and lead them every day, right? So with many of my reports, is just basically a number of times a day or a week or at any time that we are talking. And it's not that, okay, we have the yearly performance. No, it's basically, how we get better every day. At the end of the day, we
Wow.
have to provide, yeah, sorry, we have to provide value to our customers every day. So, I mean, that translating to our people and to be very focused.
Interesting. Is there, so with the people, like, is there specific things, like when you talk about it, well, it's also adding value to the people, right? That's what you're talking about, adding value to your people. How do you, in this market, especially in the food industry where everybody's headhunting from everybody else, you know, like how do you, and it's more than just money. I assume it's more than just, you got to pay fairly, but I assume it's more than that, you know,
It's
got to be in
absolutely.
the culture.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, no, it's definitely that. And we just hired one new person a couple, I would say 8 weeks ago. We invested a lot of time, not only on finding the person, but a lot of time on the onboarding and the training and
Okay.
getting the entire organization to support the person. And then after all that, what I hear is that this particular person feels that this is like a family. This is like,
I got it.
I have the
Yeah.
most important thing she said is that every morning I feel that I have a lot of energy to work, and I ends the day and I still have the energy. And I said, that's amazing. If ever this changes, just let me know, and we'll have to dig into why you don't have the same energy. Because Bruce, at the end of the day, is all about passion. I think, as I mentioned to
Go
you,
from there.
I started in Canada 18 years ago as a senior analyst at Smuckers, which I love Smuckers. Great brand, great company. And for the last 8 years, I've been basically a CFO. And basically, in a relatively short period of time, was able to move from one place to the other. It's all about passion. And the passion that I have, and the passion that our teams have, and the passion that our CEO has, I mean, that's what really drives us. So,
Wow. You're talking, guy, you're talking about a culture of passion, culture of passion. That's very, very insightful. Very insightful. The other thing too I want to ask too, um, is you mentioned, and this is our pre-conversation, you mentioned one of these success factors is you have like you have a winning culture. That's what a winning culture. One of the success factors is like to talk about is your relationship with your private equity company. You mentioned that. Can you share that? That's basically your investor. Can you share your experience with that and how that's evolved?
yeah, no, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll be pretty open on this. When initially I was interested in joining Compass and speaking initially with the private equity, as many of us, I mean, we heard all those I would say, negative stories and negative press about private equity. And definitely I was very hesitant. But our private equity, which is BDG and Associates, they are from Montreal. They are true entrepreneurs, and they really know what is necessary to build and grow businesses, to develop businesses to the next level. I have learned tremendously from all of them, and we have great relationship. They have been of outstanding support, and it provides us, I would say, a little bit of an edge, in the sense that yes, we are very entrepreneurial. We have all these kind of a family owned perspective. The company has been around for 50 years. But also on the other hand, we have all these, I would say, outstanding support from a very sophisticated operator that knows how to focus on strategy and delivering value to customers. So I think we have a little bit both of, I would say, best of both worlds at this point in time.
Mhm. Yeah. So,
and
yeah.
yeah, and so it's all about, and the second point I would say, yeah, it's important to have a winning culture and to have very focused people, but it's very important to take care of our relationships. I mean, our relationships with everyone that basically is around us, our stakeholders, our vendors, our customers. We are a very customer-centric organization, and that's number one in everyone's list around us, because we know without a customer, we are not here. So,
Right, yeah.
but also keep the relationships. I mean, we deal with growers overseas in different countries. We deal with many people around the supply chain. So keep all these relationships that have been built over the last 50 years is critical for us in every
Well,
aspect.
Mark, has anything in the last 2 years, we talked about change in terms of those relationships, has anything changed over the last couple of years? Is it harder? Is it harder, or you just keep, or the key is to keep it going, to keep like, is there any new learnings and comes from those relationships, or you stick to the plan, you stick to the culture, and you don't veer from it? No?
I think what it is that we try to nurture those relations every day, and try to be fair with everyone that we interact, and uh, from different perspectives, from the bank, from the landlord, from everyone, that the vendors, the employees. It's just to make sure that you keep those relationships strong, and that's the only way that you can basically overcome challenges, because challenges in the
Good.
environment have been mounting in the last 2 years. So the only way that you can really overcome that is, I would say, two elements: people, your people, our people, the people who work at Compass, and the relationships we build with all these vendors and everyone that we interact with, that we try to ensure that are equitable, that they are fair, that we both feel that they are in a very good place. And that is what will give us the strength to continue growing as an
Okay.
organization. And they help us grow too.
It's interesting you say the strategic difference is the ability, it's well, it's in the culture of the organization and how important it is, and the relationships really drive the growth of the company and what you're doing, and versus just, we got to keep making a new product, which is important, right? But it has to fit all together, it's all together, right? I want to ask you, just skipping the topic, I want to talk about another trend. Um is the trend in the product, the change that's occurred, the change towards organic. Can we discuss that? Like, has that how have you been affected when you talk about healthy snacks? Is there healthier snacks? You know what I mean? Like, they say, what, like, people want healthier. At least I talk about me personally. I'm into healthy everything, you know. And is there a trend taking place in the actual product itself, your snacks?
Yeah, first I would say, I mean, from myself, I mean, I'm a little bit of an anomaly. I'm an Argentinian in theory, or at least the beginning of my life, I ate meat all my life, and then now I'm a vegetarian. So that will give you a little bit of an indication.
Wow.
Yeah, passionate about the environment. Anyway, so I would say what we are seeing, and because we launched the new brand, the Goods brand, which I think has a very interesting lineup, and you can see it at Sobeys right now and at other retailers, a little bit of an advertising, but it's a great brand.
Cool. Yeah.
And so basically, we did a lot of research, and what we found is that there is a change in the perception of consumers. I mean, especially the younger ones who are looking for these healthy snacks as a little bit of a meal replacement. They live very busy lives, and they are looking for, okay, I want to have something that, yeah, is good for me, but at the same time is tasty, and I can enjoy it, and is pleasurable. So the younger consumer is basically driving the trend in this case, and that's what basically our new brand is really catering to really capture that need for, okay, we want food that is really good for you, and at the same time is healthy and
Yeah.
is tasty, and I can use it, more during the pandemic was to relieve anxiety and stress, and now is more to share experiences. And I'll give another personal opinion is that I see my son, my youngest is 16, and I see him sharing a lot of pictures that, basically food that either he cooks with friends or that we cook or that when we take him to restaurants. That's something like completely new. And so food has taken a different place. Healthy snacking is taking a different place. In our category, which is basically dry fruits and nuts, is a little bit of undervalued. And we believe that, number one, we have great quality products and they are very nutritious. And we believe that by, I would say, extending and showing or showcasing these through a new brand, it will give the opportunity to many consumers to really, I would say, appreciate more the nutritional value that dried fruits and nuts have.
That's good. Is this brand organic?
Yeah, so with the organic, I mean, that's another growing trend. Thank you for reminding me that. Definitely, we see that, although, it is still a relatively small portion, but we see a lot of growth in the organic portfolio, and many of our customers and consumers are looking more for organic. So, definitely that will continue to grow. And I hope, again, personally, I believe that for our efforts in the environment and for our efforts on ourselves and to be healthier, that will happen.
Marc, this has been very, very insightful. As you know, we try to keep this 15, 20 minutes and these podcasts. And I appreciate everything you shared. And there's great insights. And I learned a lot about the relationships, about everything. It's really extremely, extremely, and that resonated. And a lot of things resonated, but that one resonated, how the culture of organization really drives and the fact that a CFO, it's more than just the numbers. It's a lot more. It's getting involved at the entrepreneurial level and really getting involved in the organization with the team and very closely. And that's a big one that also resonated, and the evolution of your role as well and how you evolved. And I thank you so much for taking your time and doing this today. And I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Bruce, and happy to share this. And
thank you.
Really appreciate the time.
So if people want to find your products, they could find, you said it's Sobeys?
Well, that's the new brand, but it will be in another retailer. The new brand is the Goods brand, but they can contact me and I will be happy to direct them. I mean, we are very passionate. I think, just to close, that us as CFOs, we have two main roles. One is to be advocates for the organization, but at the same time, we have to be ambassadors for the organization.
100%. That's a great distinction. And I thank you, Marc, for putting that in there. I appreciate it. Anyway, have a one. So we're ending the podcast, and it was a pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll see you again soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.